K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we are expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at sales@k98fm.com. The staff of K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network is proud to announce that our very own Rowdy Rick Robinson has been selected as one of the top conservative talk show hosts in the nation for his program America Off the Rails. Again, congratulations to Rowdy Rick Robinson for a job well done and another reason to stay connected to K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network.
This show is not intended for the politically correct or the closed-minded. Enter at the risk of opening your eyes. You have been warned.
Why does the media attack an issue? To get primetime ratings?
In my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in.
The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
A moment comes when we step out from the old to the new, and when the soul of a nation, long suppressed, finds utterance.
The kind of catapult to propaganda.
You are listening to Open Eyes with your host, Ira Robinson. From the normal to the paranormal, from government cover-ups to the depths of our consciousness, we aim to explore all things. From the dawn of prehistory to current events, no topic is forbidden and nothing remains hidden.
No more secrets.
Open your eyes and open your mind to the fact that life as we know it is not as we have been taught. Join us at LateNightInTheMidlands.com or OpenEyesNetwork.com as we take this brief journey through the depths of the cosmos and explore what it really means to be human.
Many peoples have sacrificed their liberties, only to learn to their sorrow that deceit and mockery, poverty and tyranny are their reward.
Whether you're online or offline, intercontinental or intergalactic, hello, and welcome to Open Eyes. So, guys, I have a little bit of a different episode for you today. I'm going to speak about a topic that is, I feel, very important. I feel that it is something that impacts, well, every single one of us in at least some way or another, and could go far to explaining why we do things the way that we do them and why we tend to fall into the same traps over and over. So I'll get into all of that in the second part of the show. Before that, I would like to say thank you to all of you who have listened so far. I've been getting some really good feedback, and probably on Wednesday I'll go through a little bit of the emails and messages that I've received and try to answer some of the questions that I've gotten publicly so that other people could benefit from it as well. I would also like to say thank you to Late Night in the Midlands Network and K98 Talk. I really appreciate the opportunity to have my voice get out to as many people as can possibly hear it. It's been an incredible ride so far, people, and I hope you're strapped in for even more. So before we start the topic of the evening, I have some news that I wanted to cover. The first bit of news that I ran across is actually one that relates to the topic of conversation that I'm going to bring you on Wednesday, which is in regards to cyber attacks and essentially everything internet. Because I feel that it is a topic that, well, it's of critical importance to have a deep understanding of why we're so connected to the internet now and what can potentially happen if things go wrong with it, as well as maybe some ways to protect yourself from that. But the news article that I ran across says that the cyber attacks that happened against Sony Pictures that were alleged to be originating from North Korea over the whole Interview movie, the movie which shows Kim Jong-un being killed. I'm sure you remember that story by now. Antivirus pioneer John McAfee claims to have been in contact with the group of hackers behind the devastating cyber attack against Sony Pictures and guarantees they are not from North Korea. Speaking to IB Times UK about his current roster of security startups under his future tense brand, including secure messaging app Chatter, McAfee spoke about working with the FBI previously, but said that in this case the agency was wrong. A quote from John McAfee, "I can guarantee they are wrong. It has to do with a group of hackers, I will not name them, who are civil libertarians and who hate the confinement, the restrictions the music industry and the movie industry has placed on art, and so they are behind it." Now, cyber warfare is really the new type of warfare. Again, I'm going to go into a lot of this on Wednesday, but I felt that it was important to bring this news forward because a lot of people are paying attention to North Korea right now and the things that are tied to it, and they're screaming and shouting that things need to happen and we need to launch counterattacks and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's just the things that people are saying about it are just wild. And yet, here we have the pioneer of antivirus technology saying, no, North Korea had nothing to do with it. There's a lot of funny business that's going on with the whole thing. And this is just one more chink in the armor that the government has tried to put forward, saying, yes, we know for sure that it was North Korea doing this. Iceland may be a small country, but when it comes to dealing with big problems, it is truly the modern equivalent of David in the battle against the status quo Goliath. First it was Iceland, and only Iceland, refusing to bail out its banks, when every other Western nation was being held hostage by those who stood to lose the most from a financial collapse, and even going so far as throwing some of its banking executives in prison. And now Iceland's Conservative Independence Party will support a resolution in Parliament to formally withdraw Iceland's application to join the European Union. Now, this is actually really major news. Iceland got a lot of airtime in regards to its treatment of the banks in its country and its treatment of the bankers in its country as well. And I stand by Iceland and their decision to do so. It's their right to choose whatever kind of banking system they want to have there, according to their constitution, essentially. I support their choice. We all know that the big banking system, particularly here in America, is nothing more than a Ponzi scheme. It's nothing more than fakery, smoke, and mirrors. This has been well known. And I'm sure that you people know this by now as well. The fact is, though, that most people don't. And the more this type of thing comes forward into the general consciousness of people, the better off we're going to be. The quicker we can rid ourselves of these fleas on our back, so to speak. Iceland removing themselves as a contender from joining the European Union is also a particularly big part of a big piece of news. I'm surprised that Iceland has not fallen prey to nuclear attacks or anything along those lines, because they're really standing up to people. They're really standing up to the status quo, so to speak, in regards to how their citizens are treated, how their citizens act and react to things. This is pretty big news. I'm definitely going to be paying attention to what happens from this point. It should prove to be very interesting, as the Chinese would say. The world entered a new epoch on July 16, 1945, when humans detonated the first atomic bomb, scientists have concluded. Human behavior now has such an enormous impact on Earth that it has even altered the ecology of the planet and tipped us into a new era, termed the Anthropocene. Although humans have been leaving traces of their actions for thousands of years, it was not until the mid-19th century that they began to affect the entire globe, in what scientists have termed the Great Acceleration. Since then, the world has experienced a huge boom in population, environmental upheaval on land and in the oceans, and global connectivity. Scientists chose the start of the nuclear age for the birth of the new epoch because the fallout from atomic bombs is detectable in the geological record through radioactive isotopes. So the interesting thing that I thought about this is that they say that we have gone from the Holocene era, or epoch, which started approximately 11,700 years ago at the end of the last ice age. They're now claiming that we're now entering into this new era called the Anthropocene era, which is directly related to the whole climate change and global warming scam that is going on worldwide, connected to the chemtrails, connected to the geoengineering that's going on, connected to everything that's happening. And now apparently it's big enough that we're actually entering into an entirely new epoch, geologically speaking, because of it all. If you have eyes to see, you'll notice that this type of thing is really pushed forward as an agenda all the way around in the mainstream media and even in alternative media. This type of thinking really does impact people psychologically. It pushes into the brain that much further the thought that, oh, well, we're having a direct connection to what's happening on the earth and it affecting everything that goes on. Even though the proof is out there to show that that is not the case, that if human beings are having an impact on the environment and so forth, it's actually very negligible compared to everything else that's going on. This has been proven. And yes, you can say that there is just as much quote-unquote proof on the other side of the fence, but a lot of those studies that are done have been shown to have been faked. They have been shown to be modified. They've been shown to be omitting data that doesn't follow the party line, that doesn't follow the agenda. All of this stuff is well known and well documented. So the fact that the scientists are now saying, well, we're actually entering into this new era, it just adds another bit of kindling onto the fire, doesn't it? It really does push forward into the brain that agenda that much further. I mean, now they're going to start touting this as the new mainstream thinking. Oh, we've entered into an entirely new epoch, geologically speaking, because we've influenced things that much. Look at what we need to do. We need to change things. Oh, yeah, you can see it. At least I can. I don't know about you, but I can definitely see how they play these games. So recently we had the whole Paris terrorist attacks, the whole false flag thing. I did an episode about it last Monday. If you listened, you'll probably remember me talking a little bit about a lot about the fakery that's going on. And I really would recommend, if you haven't heard that episode, go to my archives on my website. That's at openeyesnetwork.com, and listen to my episode from last Monday. It's titled Paris False Flag. In that episode, I talk a lot about how they fake pictures to try to sway people's minds into thinking that, okay, well, this is real. This is something. And yet the truth is that it is all set up. It is all false flags. It is all a lie. Well, I ran across this story and I wanted to bring it up because this really does add right into it. This really does show proof positive that this whole thing was a scam from the word go. Once again, the mainstream media peddled the spoon-fed propaganda that world leaders led the march to honor the victims of the Paris shootings last week. Glorious photo ops of Merkel, Holland, Poroshenko, David Cameron, not Barack Obama, were smeared across the pages hailing the unity in outrage. However, as appears to be the case in so many events in the new normal managed thinking in which we live, The Independent reports French TV has exposed the reality of the photo op seen around the world. The dignitaries were not, in fact, at the Paris rallies, but had the photo taken on an empty, guarded side street. It shows that the front line of leaders was followed by just over a dozen rows of other dignitaries and officials, after which there was a large security presence maintaining a significant gap with the throngs of other marchers. The measure was presumably taken for security reasons, but political commentators have suggested that it raises doubts as to whether the leaders were really part of the march at all. Well, I would say they definitely were not. If you look into everything, you'll see that there really was not even the event in the way that they said it is. The whole thing was faked from the word go. It was all a lie, and so many people are falling for it that it's outrageous. This stuff is obvious, and yet now we then see the fact that the so-called leaders of the world stage didn't even have the guts to show up at the official rally. They did the whole thing sideways, the side street. Look, guys, if you thought that picture was real, you really needed to look closer anyways. I mean, every bit of it was faked. Every bit of it was faked propaganda manipulation. Speaking of propaganda and manipulation, if again you remember my episode from last week, I believe it was on last Wednesday. While it was officially Wednesday, it was actually played on Thursday because of a technical error that happened on the part of Late Night in the Midlands. But on that episode, I talked about the Fox News expert that tried to claim that the Birmingham in the UK was entirely a Muslim no-go zone, and that anyone who is non-Muslim should not go there under any circumstances, that the police don't even patrol it, and so forth. Well, Fox News finally apologized for this blatant bit of propaganda and error on their part with this expert. They have finally actually officially apologized. Granted, they kind of did it as a little bit of a side note, as these types of apologies usually are. But the fact is that the expert got on the screen, said what he said, and if you think that most people who heard that or heard about that are actually going to hear the apology and hear Fox News say that they were wrong, you got another thing coming. In the article that I found regarding all of this, Fox News stood by a number of outlandish statements, but on Saturday, the network formally apologized for an expert who claimed last week that large swaths of European cities have been taken over by Muslim extremists. The completely unsubstantiated assertion drew the ire of many Europeans, including British Prime Minister David Cameron, who called Fox News terrorism expert Stephen Emerson a complete idiot. I'd have to agree with him on that. The network built on the European no-go zones story in a January 14th report on Muslim enclaves in the United States, asserting that cities like Red House, Virginia, Commerce, Georgia, and Dearborn, Michigan are truly no-go zones with gated terrorist training camps and armed guards. Fox News guest Neil Cavuto on Friday said that the European countries should be putting razor wire around those no-go zones. You turn off the water, and then as they come out, you catalog them. He also warned that similar no-go zones governed by Sharia law are spreading across the United States. Now, in this, they mentioned the whole Dearborn, Michigan thing. And if you've not heard of this, I'm actually surprised. There was an article that was put out in 2013 claiming that Dearborn, Michigan was now officially in a state of Sharia law, and that anybody that lives there is subjected to the idea or idealism of Sharia law. Well, the fact is that that whole thing was a lie. It was put out by a website called The National Report, which is a satire site, and the whole thing was made up from the get-go. And yet here Fox News is using it as a point of reference to put out their information. And the reason why I bring all of this up is because you can see how this whole propaganda machine goes. Even politicians are getting involved in it. In Louisiana, the governor is who actually is going to be a 2016 presidential candidate, is planning to make a speech on Monday reiterating the existence of these no-go zones within the United States. I mean, this is how it works. Baseless accusations by experts are then used to make law and alter the framework of the society that we live in. Open your eyes and really take a look around. If our politicians are using this stuff as a basis to come forward with new laws, new regulations, new, like their political platforms, then we're really in trouble. I mean, these are flat out lies. I guess if there's one thing to take away from all of this, it's that just because somebody is called an expert at something doesn't mean that you need to take them at face value. You need to question everything that these so-called experts say. Just because they have a white lab jacket on and letters and numbers behind their name doesn't mean that they know jack and or squat. They don't. They're following their own agenda. They're following their own money, their own pockets, to lead them to whatever it is that needs to be said. It's as simple as that. And especially when these so-called experts are flashed in the mainstream media. I'm going to go into this more probably on Wednesday, because this whole thing does follow in with the idea of propaganda and the internet and everything. It all ties together. So make sure that you tune in for that And I'll definitely go into how all of this stuff works. Now, I'm going to have to take a break here. And when we come back, I'm actually going to talk about a subject that follows right into all of this as well. How we become addicted emotionally to different things and how we get set into patterns and habits of things that we really don't have any control over. And this propaganda, all of these different things that I've been speaking about here, it really does fall right into it. And I'll explain all of that as we go through the show. So stick around with us. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Open Eyes seeks out the heart of matters, looking for explanations in places that most other radio hosts refuse to go. No subject is forbidden, and nothing remains hidden. Listen to Open Eyes on the Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network, weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. Open minds, open hearts, open eyes. The Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network is deeply devoted to you, the listener. We feel it is necessary to bring you all of the information that you can use in your life. Each and every day you will find something to listen to here. And whether you come away from the shows informed, inspired, or entertained, it is our passion. We don't bow to corporations, and we don't have handlers to tell us what not to talk about. We bring you everything. Late Night in the Midlands, however, is fully listener-supported. We need your help to stay on the air and to make sure that we get the bills paid. We need your help to keep the truth alive. If you feel that you have gotten anything out of Late Night in the Midlands, we would appreciate your support. You can become a subscriber and help us out on a monthly basis, or if you'd like, a one-time donation is fully appreciated as well. Every year, the average household in America spends over $3,000 on entertainment alone. If you could help us with just a tiny fraction of that amount, you would make all of the difference. Go to latenightinthemidlands.com and click on the subscribe button. Thank you, and as always, keep yourself informed.
We're fighting a battle. We're singing the same song, trying to find someone who cares as much as we do. We're climbing the ladder while we're sinking in this boat, trying to find someone who cares. Oh, I'm letting go. She'll never know how I feel. Oh, this is real at all. She'll never see, so I leave her bed to find someone who cares as much as I do. No, 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 no. I'm letting go. Breaking the silence, we'll step up to the plate, trying to be someone who blends in with the crowd. We're all taking the tough road, for Lord only knows now the question why we hesitate to say goodbye. Oh, I'm letting go, 'cause she'll never know
Well, hello there. I'm glad that you stuck around through that break. My name is Ira, and I'd like to welcome you back to Open Eyes. Tonight I wanted to talk to you guys about a subject that I am very passionate about. You might have heard me allude to certain things that I will speak about tonight before. And if you have, then pardon me. But again, this is a subject that I am very passionate about. I feel very strongly about it, and I want to present it to as many people as I can, because I do think that it would make a really large difference in the world if people could understand where I'm coming from with all of this, what it means for your life, and what it could mean for changing the way that the future rolls out in front of us. A few years ago, I wrote a book called When Good Relationships Go Bad. You can find it on Amazon, as well as linked from my website, openeyesnetwork.com. And this book actually has received quite a bit of acclaim. It was a #1 bestseller on Amazon for quite a while, a fact which I'm rather proud of. But in the book, I speak about some of the things that I'm going to talk about tonight. This could be considered sort of an expansion of the information that's found in the book. The book, of course, goes into a lot more than what I'm going to discuss here. But if you're interested, you could go to my website, openeyesnetwork.com, and find the link for the book in the show notes for this show. I'll give the link at the end of the show. But in particular, this subject tonight that I want to talk about is emotional addictions and the reason why we do things the way that we do them, and maybe how to change the ways that we do things so that we're no longer subjected to things that we did not realize were in control of us, to sort of get a very strong control over our lives from this point forward. Now, before I go into the actual subject of emotional addictions and explaining what they're about and what we can do about them, I need to cover the topic of the mind, because it's intimately related to the idea of being addicted to emotions. So what is the mind really? The mind is all about survival. You see, it has evolved for thousands upon hundreds of thousands of years to do one thing and one thing only: survive. It has finely tuned itself to ensuring that we live on for another moment. And it's very good at its job. Now, because of that, changing is very difficult, and some people find it actually impossible. But change is how we grow, right? Change is how we go from one portion of our lives into the next. We could continue with the existence that we currently have as it stands, but what would be the point of life then? We'd never learn anything new, we'd never experience anything new, and life would be, well, stagnant and boring. Because of that boredom, we'll find ourselves dissatisfied with the things that we would have previously found to be perfectly acceptable. So let's take an example of a relationship that you might be in. Let's say, for example, that you're a man that has a girlfriend. Everything in the relationship is good, but you find yourself getting bored with the way that things are. But you fear changing things, like breaking up with the person or whatever. Life starts to get stagnant and you find yourself resenting the person that you're with and the things that they do. And these could be things that you previously thought were just fine and maybe even cute or funny. The problem in a situation like that, as with everything, is that the mind is, when it comes down to it, insane. Now, why do I say that the mind is insane? Well, because it has, as I said, evolved to do nothing more than to survive. When we're in a bad relationship or a bad situation, the emotional chemistry that is raging through our brains is no different than the same chemistry that we're going through our brains when we're running on the Serengeti trying to avoid the lion. So the mind doesn't know the difference between the two. It can't discern the difference between you running from the lion on the Serengeti or you being in a fight with your girlfriend in the bedroom over money, just as an example. It knows no different, and it will do everything that it can do to survive. Now, as I said, to kind of clarify here, in the early history of mankind, the function of keeping you alive was essential. The smallest change in your environment could lead to greater food supplies or utter destruction and death at the hands of a predator. So the mind learned how to recognize and organize things into compartments of this will kill me or this will help me live. It would then use those compartmentalized and patterned discoveries to keep our ancestors living, avoiding dangers and keeping them alive until the next generation could come up and start doing their own survival. The mind still has the same duties today. That function has never gone away. But we live in a different world now than our ancestors did, right? I mean, today, in today's society, things are just vastly different. You're not likely to go to your job and find yourself face to face with a mountain lion or a bear. And you're also not likely to have to determine whether that bump in the night is a predator that's coming to get you or nothing more than the house settling down. The mind, however, doesn't know that, you see. Its function, if you remember me just saying this, is to survive. And here is where this falls into the importance for us today. You are right now, at this moment, alive. That means that your mind has been successful in navigating everything that you've gone through, and it's learned that X thing will do one thing and Y thing will do another, and it's going to do whatever it needs to do to survive. It's going to do everything that it can do to maintain the status quo. It's going to lie to you. It's going to trick you and fool you. It's going to put you into situations that you never would have imagined possible in order to keep things as they are at this moment. I mean, do you see the importance of that? Do you understand what that really means for you and your life? Your mind knows that at this point in time, if you were to change anything, you're going to die. At least so it thinks. If you are in a bad relationship with somebody, you're not going to get out of it, at least if you follow your mind's advice, because, well, if you do, you're going to die. That's how the mind thinks. That's what it was designed to do. It's going to do everything, literally everything that it can do to make sure that whatever your present circumstances are, whatever emotions you're feeling, whatever stresses you're under, they're not going to change because you're alive and it's done its job. To do anything different is going to bring about the end of your life, or so it thinks. Now, bear in mind, what I'm speaking about here is not the consciousness. It's not your conscious thought process. This is the meat. This is the pre-programmed stuff that goes on while you're living your daily life. This is the thing that has control of you when you're driving down the road and you're on a familiar road that you've driven every day for the past 5 years, and you sort of wake up one day not realizing how you even got home. You see, this part of you, this mind part of you, is the part that has sort of that autonomic control. It is the part of you that takes things over and does things without you even realizing it. And this is what's really important to understand, because it is not a sane, rational thinking thing. It's not the true you. It is what, as I said, it's the meat of the body, not the spirit of the body. I'm trying to make sure that this is clarified, because the person that you are is not the mind. Okay? However, our consciousnesses and our actions are influenced by the mind. What our conscious mind decides to do has been filtered and processed through the meat suit, basically. And that's why it's so easy for us to fall into the traps of the mind. Why it's so easy for us to keep falling into doing things over and over again, because we have to stay alive, even if it's the worst thing that we could be going through. So, saying all of that, here's how things get influenced so easily with us. These are the traps. We all have overlaid on us a pattern that we have fallen into because of every experience that we've had in our lives. This is the template that we have become, the mold that we're fitting into, that we get poured into. And so everything that we do is influenced by the fact that we're in this mold or this pattern. So, for instance, experiences that you had in your childhood will have an impact and influence things that happen to you now, because everything that you've gone through has led you to this moment. Everything that we go through shapes who we are at this point in time. I mean, that's pretty simple stuff. I'm sure that you understand what I'm meaning by that. For instance, if you are someone that was abused in your childhood everything that you do is going to be looked at through the lenses of that trauma. If you were someone who fell into, for example, if you were somebody that fell into a well and broke your leg, you may have that scar or that limp from that point in time because of something that happened to you during your childhood. Patterns and emotions and traumas all have an influence on our daily lives, whether we really recognize it or not, and whether we even remember the original incident or not. It will still have an influence on you far into the future if you let it, if you don't take control over it. So these patterns are very important to understand. The pattern of the person that you are right now is very influenced by everything that you've gone through. It's not even necessarily what you think of yourself. We think of ourselves as being a certain thing, and yet to other people, they see something different because of our actions or our words. And yet, that's not who we think that we are. Who we think we are is something completely different. Who we look at in the mirror is not what other people see us as. So, again, as far as patterns are concerned, everything that we go through influences the mold that we're fitting into. So it's not just traumatic experiences, but it could be things like relationships that you had in high school. It could be religious experiences or spiritual experiences. They have just as much of an influence on it. For example, you could have a really dramatic religious experience, and the endorphin release that happens when you have one of these experiences is very striking to us. It etches itself indelibly in our memories and in our emotions, and it influences everything that we do from that point forward. So that moment of religious ecstasy, or that moment of deep, deep meditation, or a moment of pure forgiveness, or deep prayer, all of these things have this influence on the patterns. And it actually is such an extreme experience that we'll do whatever we can to seek it out again. Our relationships, especially the ones that are in our formative years, cause us to adhere to patterns. And relationships not only means your relationship with other people, but it also means your relationships with objects or with God or whatever it may be. Everything is a relationship. Everything that you're connected to is a relationship. So what does all of this stuff have to do with emotional addictions? Well, we find ourselves repeating patterns in our lives. We will put ourselves into situations or circumstances that are essentially, when you come down to it, identical to those that happened before. When we do this, we are subconsciously seeking to fulfill an emotional need. We will look for people or circumstances or situations that will allow us to go through the processes that we've been through before, to essentially help us to complete the pattern that we've overlaid upon ourselves. So, for example, let's just take an example of a relationship between you and someone else. So let's say, for example, we find a person and we get together. We experience all of the good feelings that come from that relationship. So you get together with somebody and you fall in love. And so you feel the feelings of falling in love. And you enjoy the happiness that the two of you have together. And then we'll find a reason to start doubting things for whatever reason. And that leads to a wedge that gets placed between us. It leads to a gap that starts to form between the two people. And then you start going through the emotional torment of it all. You start going through the guilty feelings, the misery, the sadness, the jealousy. And then we want to have a break in the relationship, which ends up leading to all of the horrible things that end up occurring after that relationship has ended. And then a month later, 2 months later, 6 months later, we get involved in a new relationship, and it follows the exact same patterns all over again. I mean, heck, they could even look like the same person, the same body type, the same facial features, whatever it may be. This person could be an almost clone of who you were together with before, and the relationship goes the exact same way every time. And if you look back on your life, you might see that that is exactly what has happened to you and the relationships that you've been in. And if you see this type of thing, if you see this type of thing occurring when you look back in your memories at it all, then you can realize that you have fallen into a pattern of feeding emotional addictions. You see, emotions, just like all other things that occur within our body, is a process. It's a chemical process that happens. It's an electromagnetic process that happens. It's a process in one way or another. The things that happen to us when we feel emotions can be very potent and can be very powerful. And they can become addictive. They can become very addictive. We start craving those feelings. I'll give you a great example of it is when you feel the feeling of being in love with somebody. That's a very addictive feeling. You'd love to feel it all over again. And there's actually a very scientific explanation for that. It's the oxytocin that's inside of you. It flows through your brain, and it's an extremely addictive substance. I mean, we're talking the emotional addictions can be just as addictive as heroin or worse. When somebody falls into the pattern of fulfilling the needs of these emotions, it's just like a heroin addict going out and getting their fix. This person will go through everything that they can go through to get that heroin so that they can shoot up and, have the release. Finally, I got it back in my system again. It's the same thing with emotions. They work exactly the same way. So again, these patterns that we fall into, these patterns that have been placed over us, that we're fitting into, these things are there for us to fulfill those emotional needs, to fulfill those emotional desires to fulfill those emotional wants and cravings and addictions. They're all the patterns are there to help us find our next fix. And that fix, this pattern, is the drug that you're addicted to. That's what it comes down to. The pattern is the drug. And you will go through all of the same things over and over again to find that drug, shoot it up, and fulfill the need. I've seen this happen in my own life. I've seen this happen in the lives of others around me, people that I've talked to about all of this stuff and helped them work through their addictions with all of this stuff. I have seen it happen time and time again. This is a very valid hypothesis that I'm putting forward with all of this. We have more... We have things that we go through and things that we do that we don't even realize we're doing. We don't even realize why we do them. We just do them. It's just a habit, you see. And this habit, this habitual type of programming that we have on ourselves is just as much in regards to emotions as it is with being addicted to food, or being addicted to caffeine, or to cigarettes, or again to heroin. There is no difference between any of these addictions. The emotional addiction is just as potent, if not more so, than any other drug that's out there. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that emotions are bad, okay? But in all of this stuff, what I want people to do is to recognize that the emotions that you're seeking out may not necessarily be the emotions that you consciously want in your life. And our mind, again, getting back to the insane mind thing, our mind is doing everything that it can to keep this pattern that we're in intact. But as I just discussed earlier, the mind is insane. Do you really want to be controlled by something that is insane? Do you really want to be controlled by the fact that everything that you do is just a matter of falling into these patterns? Now, I know I don't. If you do, that's fine. But I know that I, for one, would rather have a free will choice involved in it all. And that's why I'm coming forward with all of this stuff to you tonight. Because I hope that you feel the same way. I see so many things that go on around us. All of the things that people do, all of the things that people are going through, all of the crazy things that people do. And I look at all of this through this idea of the patterns of things and the addictions to these different emotions. And I realize that the vast majority of people out there have fallen into these patterns. I'm sure maybe you even know some yourself, people in your life, for example, that are very addicted to shopping. They get this emotional release out of it when they go shopping and they spend $200, $300 or whatever. And they do it without, it's like a subconscious thing. They do it and they don't even think about the fact that, okay, 2 weeks from now, how am I going to pay my freaking bills? I just went out and I spent $300 on 2 pairs of shoes, or whatever it may be. I mean, I'm just giving it as an example, but you get the point. People do these things. They fall into these patterns. They get addicted to the emotions that they want to be addicted to. They end up falling into the things and fulfilling their addiction, not even thinking of the consequences that are going to come. And the same thing happens in regards to people that fall into the pattern of seeking out doom porn, seeking out the pattern of, okay, well, this is going to be the end of the world coming up in 2 weeks. Okay, well, everything worked out fine. I have an emotional release now. Everything is okay. I just saw on Facebook that in 2 weeks the world is supposed to be destroyed. Oh my God, now I'm scared. What am I going to do? Research. Go through, read everything that I possibly can on the subject. Oh, fear. The fear is building. It's growing. The day has arrived. Oh my God, what are we going to do? This is horrible. We're all going to die. Okay, wait, everything was fine. Oh, okay. Now we're okay. Everything is fine. I'm glad. I'm happy to be here. Woo, celebrate life. Yay, the next day, they find out 2 weeks later. You see what I mean? It's a pattern that goes over and over. This person who goes through that particular thing, they've gotten addicted to the doom and gloom pornography that's out there. And they follow the same pattern. They get scared. They start thinking of the future. They start thinking, okay, well, what are we going to do? Got to prep. Got to go into survival instinct. Got to go into survival mode. You see, right there, I just said it actually as well. The survival thing, the mind, completely takes over in this whole situation. But you see, I know people in this business that we're in here, in this field that we're in on this show, for example, or on Late Night in the Midlands Network. I know people who come and listen to the shows or who are involved in this field that constantly do this type of thing. They're constantly either going from one thing to another where they're seeing the end of the world predictions and, oh my God, what are we going to do? 2 weeks later, they're fine. And then they do it all over again. And I also see just as many people as well putting out the doom pornography. The people that are the influence peddlers. The people who are there trying to make their quick buck over all of this stuff going on. Who are there to take advantage of those people who are fulfilling their addictions. You see, there's a lot of that goes on. I also see how the masses of people fall into the different addiction patterns that the dark masters put out as well. They see in the news media the constant news cycles of, okay, well, this is happening. Okay, now this is happening. And they move from subject to subject to subject. And each time that they're going from one subject to the next, they are either fulfilling something like confusion or fear or laughter or whatever it may be. They're being influenced by these things, and they are feeding these addictions that they have. Look at Black Friday shoppers. That's a really good example. Look at people who go out shopping on Black Friday. They go out thinking, I'm going to get this great deal. Woohoo! Looking forward to it. It's exciting. We're going to have a great time. It's going to be fun. Let's get together. We're going to have a group of 10 people running around. We're going to grab everything that we can. They start getting really hyped up and really excited. And okay, that is a really addictive thing right there. Okay, that excitement, that looking forward, that anticipation, the anxiety, it's all a very addictive emotion. Okay, well then they actually get to the stores and they start seeing the other people that are there fulfilling their emotional needs, and they start getting angry. Okay, we're going to fight now. We're going to fight over this TV. We're going to fight over this. Got to have this toaster with the 50 different settings that we're never ever going to use. And you might get hurt. They might get harmed in all of this, but that's the risk to take. It's a gamble. And gambling is addictive, correct? It's a gamble. They're taking the chance. They're taking the risk. And then they get home. Oh, now I'm tired. Boy, we had a good time today, didn't we? Yeah, really good time. Okay, so now we can look forward to Christmas and all the good stuff that's coming on there. You see what I mean? It is a pattern that they're fulfilling. I mean, it has to be. Some of the things that goes on Black Friday are just insane. They're just crazy. And I have to think there's got to be some kind of underlying reason for all of this to go on. Give me some hope for humanity here. Let me think that something can break or change that's going to make things a little bit better maybe in the future. I hope. Anyways, you get the idea with all of it, right? It's the patterns that are overlaid on us. It's the patterns that we fall into that we have designed for ourselves from the moment of our birth forward. And yet, if people really understood the way that they're influenced by their past and the way that they're influenced by these things that are flowing through them and holding on to them, they would probably do things to change them. Because not everybody wants to be influenced by their past, right? I know I don't. And I know from talking to people about all of this stuff that 9 out of 10 people don't want to either. And yet people find it so difficult to change. Change is so hard to do. People like me who come onto the radio and try to talk to people about the different things that we see going on in the world, we come forward with this hope that things are going to change, with this desire that things can maybe progress away from the darkness that we see coming. And yes, this may very well be an emotional addiction on our parts as well. I'm totally okay with understanding that. But we see these people out there, the masses, that we try to speak about the bad things that are going on. The fact that we're being attacked with false flags on a constant basis. The fact that our governments are in cahoots with the corporations and are essentially destroying us one molecule at a time over and over and over again. We try to wake people up to these things. We try to speak to people about it all because this is what we're passionate about. This is what we're passionate about, getting this information out to folks. Okay? And the reason why a lot of people have difficult times seeing the facts and seeing the idea that the governments are doing these things and so on and so forth, they're having a hard time seeing that because their minds are influencing them, because their patterns are influencing them. They just can't see it, and they can't change it. And even if they could see it, they don't change it because this pattern is so strong on them to fit into this mold where X thing equals Y thing, and therefore we are surviving and everything is okay. You can't disrupt the status quo. You can't rock the boat, because if you do, we're going to die. So people literally think they're going to die if they start believing the things that they're being told with all of this, because then it's going to change them. And we can't change. So for us, the ones that are trying to speak the truth, it becomes a double-edged sword, sort of. It becomes a very difficult fight because we're trying not only to cut through the fact that people don't want to listen, but also cut through the emotional patterns or the patterns that are overlaid on someone to make them even comprehend the fact that something is not right. It's a very difficult process. And these are the things that people just, again, nobody really understands this stuff. Nobody really sees that this is how things go. And so we are bashing our heads against the wall, trying to say, please, for God's sake, please listen, because we're being destroyed. Even as my breath is coming out of my mouth, we're being destroyed. And it's hard to get people to listen to it because of these patterns, because they just don't want to break the addictions that they currently have. Their mind won't let them. So, guys, I'm going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about the specifics of emotional addictions and some actual deeper stuff involved with it, like the fact that other people are being influenced by it and so forth. And also get into how to break the patterns, how to break the addictions, how to break through all of the stuff that's on us, how to start to take control over our own lives on a conscious basis and not be influenced by the things that we've fallen into and not be caught in these traps that we're in. We're also going to talk about a few other things as well. So, guys, stick around with us. We will be back in just a few minutes. You may be suffering from OMS, Open Mind Syndrome. This disorder can be a burden on those suffering from it, as they see the insanity in the world around them. Symptoms of this disorder are likely to be not accepting the status quo, talking frequently about issues that are really important, studying things that are not acceptable by the mainstream thinking, and asking too many questions. This disease can spread rapidly, even over the internet and airwaves. It is becoming an epidemic. If you or someone you know suffers from open mind syndrome, do not seek help. It is apparent that this condition is actually the normal human response to information. In fact, it is best to interact often with fellow sufferers at latenightinthemidlands.com to remain open-minded. Open mind syndrome. It's no joke.
Tune into The Family Factor with Denny C. every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning at 5 a.m. as he looks at all the challenges facing the family today. Denny will give you a refreshingly new look at tackling some of the biggest issues. So start your day off on the right foot with Denny C. and The Family Factor, right here on the New Spark Radio Network and K98Talk.com.
Sunshine. The L&M Radio Network and Late Night in the Midlands depends on you, the listener. Without you, there would be no us. So help us continue to bring you the best guests with the best information and subscribe today. Information on becoming an L&M subscriber can be found at the top of latenightinthemidlands.com. Just click the About Subscriptions tab and become part of the family while helping the truth stay alive. And while you're at it, maybe subscriptions aren't for you. A one-time donation helps as well. Click that donate button on the right side of latenightinthemidlands.com and help us help you.
Open Eyes looks for the truth in all things, no matter where it may lead. Whether it is the paranormal, government cover-ups, the dark agenda that the puppet masters are bringing to this world, or aliens and UFOs, no subject is taboo or off-limits. Listen to Open Eyes Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on the L&M Network at latenightinthemidlands.com or openeyesnetwork.com starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Open hearts, open minds, open eyes. Welcome back to Open Eyes. My name is Ira, and I really want to thank you guys for listening to this tonight. The stuff that I'm talking about tonight is stuff that I am really, really passionate about, and I just would love for people to come to an understanding of it all, to come to an understanding of how we're influenced so deeply by everything that we've gone through, by everything that we've focused our attentions on, by everything that we've become addicted to. And it really does have such a major impact on what we do, what we look at, what we think, how we think of other people. It's incredible how easily it is for our minds to fool us and to trick us and to make us believe that what we see around us is what is real, that what we see coming into our eyes is what is real. Our minds are amazing. Our brains are so amazing. We have, at least according to most people, 5 senses. In reality, we have more than 20. You never hear about those. But most people think that we have these 5 senses, the touch, the smell, the tastes, the sights and the sounds. And that through these 5 senses, everything that we see around us is the reality that it is. That it's the finality that it is. That, we look around and we see the light coming into our eyes from the lamp that's sitting on our desk. Or we see the car driving down the road. Or we see the smiling face of our child. And in reality, none of those things exist. None of those things are really there. They're just the perceptions of our brains. They're just the way that our brains have been designed to allow us a means to interact with the energies that are all around us, to interact with the very fabric of existence, to become something like a droplet of dew sitting on a pool of water. That's how small we really are compared to the energies that are surrounding us. And we're that energy as well. We're just as much that energy as the sunlight, as the rays of light that are coming from the sun. We're just as much energy as the sounds that you're hearing right now. That's what's real. Not this body that you're in, not the desk that you're sitting at, or the car that you're sitting in, or the floor that you're walking on, or whatever it may be. That's not what's real. What's real is the space, the energy, the vibrations, all of those things. That's what's real. But because we have these brains, we're gifted with the ability to interact with all of it, even if it's just for this one brief moment in time. So, you got your coffee, you got your tea, you got your pop, whatever it may be. Are you sitting down? Are you nice and comfortable? Are you driving in your car, or are you walking down the road? Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, thank you for being with me. Thank you for allowing me to talk to you. And thank you for taking the things that I have to say in, and hopefully come to an understanding of where I'm coming from and what I'm trying to speak about. So we've been talking about emotional addictions and the things that we go through every day that are influenced by everything that we've gone through before. To have these patterns that are on us, that we fit ourselves into, that determine where we go from here and what we do from here. I'm going to talk a little bit about a deeper subject with all of this. You see, it's not just us. It's not just you that has the pattern on you. It's everybody. All people do. And everybody's patterns are different from each other because we've all gone through different experiences. But some patterns are close. Some patterns are compatible. And we will find people that fit our compatible pattern. Our subconsciouses, our minds are very powerful. Our consciousnesses are very powerful. It is all that there is. Okay? And we will actually send out a signal of sorts to other people, to the universe at large, to say, hey, I'm ready to fulfill my addiction. I'm ready to have this injection come into me so that I can be fulfilled, so that I can have this need met. And what ends up happening is other people will heed that call. The universe will lead people into your life that suit that pattern, that will help you fulfill your needs, that will go through those beginning stages of a relationship with you and fall in love with you and allow you to fall in love with them. And then start having issues between you. And by the time all is said and done, you're walking away from each other with your needs met, maybe hating each other, whatever it may be. You'll have the same thing occur over and over again. I mean, our consciousnesses commune with each other in ways that science has not been able to explain yet. But when it comes down to it, science doesn't even understand what the consciousness is yet. They'll claim, oh, well, consciousness is just an extension of the mind, and it doesn't really mean anything. It's no different than the processes of the brain functioning, and this is an offshoot or a derivative of that functioning. Like we're all computer systems, essentially, or we're all robots that are just following programming, and our consciousnesses are just that programming coming into fruition. But that's not the case, is it? Science can claim that, but they don't even know what the consciousness is. They can't find the consciousness in the brain. They have no clue what the consciousness is. So how then can they say that they know what it's all about? They can't. But our consciousnesses really do interact with each other. They really do. The subconscious minds of each of us cahoot together to make the situation that we're in fit the patterns that we desire. So, for example, let's say that you're a girl together with a guy. You're addicted to the feelings that happen to you after you've been cheated on. Maybe what happened in your high school period of time was you got together with the handsome football player, and you got together. He's this Greek Adonis who is the fulfillment of every schoolgirl's fantasy, the rich kid, whatever it may be. And then 2 months after you get together, he cheats on you with the head cheerleader or whatever. Well, let's say, for example, that forms the pattern that influences your life. And so you, from that point on, get together with the handsome guy who's got money, who is the Greek Adonis, who is fulfilling all the schoolgirls' fantasies, and yet cheats on you. So you form this pattern of getting together with somebody and then feeling like you're being cheated on. You start accusing the guy that you're now with of cheating, even though there really is no evidence that anything like that has happened. You may still start accusing him of it because that's your pattern. Okay? That's the thing that you have come to expect is going to happen in your relationships. You start looking for that cheater in everything that he does. Now, after being accused of it over and over and over, he finally does cheat just because of the attitude that some people end up getting after being accused of things so often. They're just like, well, hell with it. I may as well just do it. I'm already being punished for it. I may as well at least get the pleasure out of doing it. That happens. And now you go through the turmoil as the result of this guy cheating on you. The addiction has now been fed. You break up with that one and you move on to the next one, where the same pattern occurs again. That's a perfect example of how these emotional addictions work together with other people, because not only are your addictions being fed there, but his are as well, because maybe he has the emotional addiction of getting together with somebody who is going to then start accusing him of cheating, and he becomes the cheat because he's now fallen into that pattern over and over and over. You may be He may be looking and acting like the same guy that you get together with over and over, but you look like the same girl that he gets together with over and over. And then once you guys split apart, you guys move on to the next people in line that are going to be the equals of the same pattern all over again. Now, these addictions can be to good things as well. I know that I've kind of focused on the negative with all of it, but they can be to good things too. So, for example, you could be addicted to love, to family, to friends, and seeking out new people to experience those things with. And there's no negative connotation to any of it. There's no negative result at the end of it. That's a good thing. That's what I would say would be a good addiction to have, okay? Unfortunately, most of the patterns that are out there do fit into the negative, because negative emotional addiction is much easier to feed. overall. It's a part of our survival instinct to seek out the negatives in life. Because when, let's say, for example, our ancestors were running from the lions in the Serengeti, okay, if we're walking through the Serengeti and we don't pay attention to the predator that's around the corner, we're getting eaten, right? So it behooves us to pay attention to the potential dangers, which are negatives. So we always, in everything that we do, look for the negativity around us. And that's why sometimes a lot of people think that this world is going to hell in a handbasket. And I'm not denying the fact that there are a lot of negative things that are going on. But guys, just because there's negatives doesn't mean that there's not positives. For every negative that happens, there really is a positive that happens as well. It's just in a matter of how you look at it and where you're looking. I've talked about that before. Hopefully you guys remember that conversation. But yes, we do tend to look for the negatives in everything because that's a matter of survival. That's a matter of keeping us alive for that much longer. So with all of this stuff being said, what can be done about it? I don't want to just hit you with the information and not leave you with the ability to cut through the patterns that you're in and be essentially at the mercy of your insane mind. There are ways to break free of all of this. There are ways to break out of the patterns and start living life how you want to live it instead of how your emotional addictions want to live it. So the first step is to realize that you want it to happen. The choice really is ours of whether or not we want to remain slaves to our addictions. We're not here for the first time. This is not our first dance around this maypole, at least in my experience and in my knowledge of things. We have been here before and will be here again. We set up ahead of time, I think, the things that we're going to go through as a way to learn lessons for our spirits to grow. When we don't learn the lessons that we wanted to learn, the universe, for lack of better words, will give us another chance to learn it. And each time the lesson gets tougher and tougher. If you truly want to break free, though, you have to change how you act and react to relationships. You might just need to learn that being alone is fine. And that it's the best thing that you could do for now. The lesson may be that you need to learn to be self-sufficient. That you don't need to be with someone, but that you want to be with someone. And there's a difference between those two. Now, I will say, this is something I feel very strongly about. And I know that some people have issues with this, but this really is true. If someone in your life is a negative influence, you don't need that person in your life. You don't need to have that negativity in your life. You don't need to be miserable. And if it's a family member, that's just as much true. Just because you're saddled with somebody genetically doesn't mean that you have to have anything to do with them. So if it's a family member that you're having these emotional addiction problems with, and they're a negative influence in your life and you know it, they're destructive to you, you can walk away from them. You have that option to do so. I know for some people, they think that family is the end-all and be-all, and that no matter what, you have to stick with family. But that really is not the case. Sometimes family is the worst thing for us because they're such a negative influence on us. You can walk away from that. You don't need it. The next thing that I'll say in regards to all of this is that you can think of things a little bit differently than what you do right now. Try to get this into the mind to try to start breaking that pattern that's on you, okay? If, let's say, for instance, you look back in your life and you see that the relationships that you get into now are troublesome because of a dark relationship that's in your past, you can come to the realization that this is happening to you and end it. I guess think about it this way. The person that hurt you in the past has control over everything that you do now. Do you really want that? Do you really want that person to have the satisfaction of knowing that everything that you do is tainted by the hatred or by the anger, the hurts or the sorrows or the fears that this person made you feel? I mean, you have to do what you can to move past that emotional trauma and scars that you carry on you so that you're actually not impacted by them at every turn. If you've been hurt in the past, you know how much it can affect every single relationship that you have in the future. But the reason why it has such a foothold on you is because you never stepped out of the insane mind and granted forgiveness to the person for what happened to you. You don't have to live subjected to that insane mind. You can break free of it and start living your life the way that you would like to really live it. You can be free of those emotional traumas and bonds that you carry with you to that other person. I mean, think about that. Someone that's hurt you now has full control over everything that you do. I know this from being somebody that was abused. I wouldn't want my abuser to know that what they did to me impacts my relationships today. They would laugh maniacally at the whole idea of it, and they would take a sick pride in it. So the best way to break free of these things is to practice an attitude of gratitude. Forgiveness is the most powerful tool that you have at your disposal. Forgiveness is like our spiritual steam release valve. It's about releasing the anger and the hate and the hurt that what the other person did to us made us feel. It's so that we can get away from it, cleanse it from our auras, so to speak, and not have that corruption influencing us anymore. But the mind being insane and wanting us to not change anything, or we're all going to die right now, it has a hard time dealing with true forgiveness. And the best way to practice forgiveness is to say thank you. Thank you to the person who hurt you. Thank you to the person who helps you. Thank you for everything. Thank because everything that you go through is to teach you these lessons. And you can learn even from the hurts and even from the sorrows and even from the angers. You can learn from them and you can move past them. I mean, these are things that the Dark Masters don't want you to know. They take sick pride in the fact that people don't practice gratitude. They don't practice forgiveness. They laugh at the idea that they've helped to shape us into the emotionally addicted, non-thinking, and completely under their control animals that we've become. And you don't have to live that way. There are better ways to do things. So what I recommend to people to get through some of these things that are on us, and we're never going to eliminate every pattern that's on us. We're never going to get away from everything that we've gone through because, of course, we're human beings and we're built upon, our personality is basically an amalgam of our experiences and our ethics and our morals. When you break it all down, that's our personality. So we're never going to truly be completely free of everything that we've gone through because we carry our pasts with us. It's just the way that things are. And that's okay. But my point with all of this is to think about the things that are in your life that are being influenced by these emotional patterns that are on you, by these emotional addictions that you have, and try to find ways to keep away from the darker ones, for instance, or to have it so that you're not so hurt by them, or to actually break free of them and move into a relationship that's better than what you've had in the past. I'll give you a personal example. I've been married 4 times. I've been in a lot of relationships outside of the marriages as well. And all of the relationships that I went through, they all had the same color, flavor, taint, whatever it is that you want to say. They all had similar looks. They all had similar body types. They all had similar personality patterns. I mean, these were essentially all equal women. They were almost clones of each other. And after my 3rd marriage, I essentially got to the point where I sat down and worked through these emotional addictions that I had. I took a real good hard look at my entire life, and I wrote down everything that I could think of that could be contributing to the emotional patterns that I had. And after doing this, I now had a laundry list, for lack of better words, of all of the things that I needed to work on, that I needed to change in myself, one at a time, one little small thing at a time. And once I worked through a lot of them, I mean, I didn't work through all of them. I still have at least some of them on me. But after I worked through some of them, I suddenly found myself in a relationship with someone that was vastly different than anybody else that I had ever been with. And I came to realize what true love actually was. And I'm speaking of my wife, Jolene. It took me breaking the patterns that I had placed on myself to find something different, to find something that was much different and so much incredibly better than anything that I had ever had in the past. And I guess through everything that I do, I want people to walk away from my shows better than they were when they first started listening, either through being inspired, being entertained, being enlightened, whatever it may be. I would like people to walk away from things that I speak of and try to find a better path through life, or try to find the truth for themselves, or try to find points of interest that they can research and discover where we've been lied to. I want people to come away from me better than they were, and not worse. So that's what I'm trying to do with this episode in particular. Now, as I said, I have actually written a book that is based around all of this. I go much more in depth in the book about everything, as well as other things that influence our relationships and ways that we can break free of them, ways that we can step away from them and try to find something a little bit better in life, to walk away from things a little bit better off than we were before. And I really would love for all of you guys to read it. Now, if you'd like to find it, you can go to my website, which is at openeyesnetwork.com. You can go to the show notes for this show in particular. They'll be at openeyesnetwork.com/OE060. And I'll have a link to my Amazon author page. I have other books that I've written as well that are there. But in particular, this one is called When Good Relationships Go Bad. And my name is Ira Robinson. I hope you guys know that by now. All of my books can be found through my author page there. I really would love for all of you guys to read it, because it's something that I think everybody could really benefit from, at least in some way. Now, the book is cheap. I've got it on there right now. I believe it's for 99 cents. I mean, it's dirt cheap. It's literally the cheapest that you can charge on Amazon for a book. So I would love for you guys to check it out and hopefully come away from this episode with a better equipped consciousness and mindset to break through and break free of some of the darkness, some of the negativity, and some of the troubles that you have in your life. I would love it. I really would. So if you want to send me an email, I love getting emails. I've received actually quite a bit of feedback about my show so far, and I love hearing each and every one of you. Even trolls. I don't mind hearing from trolls either, and I've heard from a couple. It's no big deal to me. But if you want to send me an email, you can send it to feedback@openeyesnetwork.com. Again, you can go to the show notes for this show. They'll be at openeyesnetwork.com/OE060. If you want to reach us on Facebook or Twitter, on both platforms we're at Open Eyes Network. On scene.is, we are at Ira Robinson. And we also have actually available all of our episodes in our archives through our website, openeyesnetwork.com. If you want to go through any of the previous shows that we've had, I would really recommend listening to them. I have a lot of information that's available for everybody to benefit from, and hopefully to pick up information that you may not have had before. I really recommend going there and listening. On Wednesday, we are going to bring you the topic of cyber attacks and some of the craziness that's going on as far as trying to control the internet. Basically, it's going to be an internet-centric episode. That will be on Wednesday, the 21st of January, and you can listen to it starting at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be sure to stick around. Michael Vera will be bringing you Late Night in the Midlands very soon, within just a few minutes, actually. And don't forget that on the network here, Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network, we have a lot of new shows that are starting to be available. Let's see, there was Paranormal Perception just got added over this weekend, and it was a great show, as well as Chris Flisher's show, The Turning of the Wheel. Of course, there's Michael's show, Late Night in the Midlands, and Riscala's Red Pill Reality Show on Saturdays, as well as Ryan's Secret Teachings on Sundays. You know, Late Night in the Midlands is an awesome network. I am so glad to be a part of it, and I'm so honored to be a member here as well. It's a wonderful thing. So don't forget, tune in Wednesday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, latenightinthemidlands.com. Until next time, keep safe out there and have fun, and thank you for listening.